Thank you with Jamie McLennan, Jeff O'Neill, and Darren Dreger. That performance would be shocking if we hadn't seen it so many times before with this group in playoffs past. You have a critical game that you have to win in your own building. You should be more focused, more motivated than you have been all season long. How do you explain them not showing up for those first two periods?
You just described the circumstances and what was at stake for the Toronto Maple Leafs, James. It was one of the biggest games for everybody collectively to have a chance. They had to have the game of their life just to have a chance against the Boston Bruins, and they were lifeless. It was the worst two first periods for this core group of players since they've been together. They needed to be dynamite, and in a game that was must-win to have a chance in this series, the best two guys on the ice, the two guys that made things happen, were David Pastrnak and Brad Marchand. Here's Brad Marchand on the power play. On the power play, special teams, big moment, Brad Marchand. And then later on in the hockey game, to put the nail in the coffin, these guys get a 2-on-0 and they beat the Toronto Maple Leafs. That's what needs to happen, and they just could not do it. And it's the same thing time and time again. In massive moments, you've got to step up and make something happen out there, and they just seize up, and once again, they could not make it happen.
You know, it's become sport in Leafs Nation, I think, to pile on Mitch Marner. But Mitch Marner, despite the fact that he scored a goal and tried to get the Leafs back into the game, didn't do enough. And the frustration bubbled to a point where you've got the big boys sniping at each other on the bench. And William Nylander's back into the mix. You know, he comes off, injury issues that he was dealing with. And there you have Matthews with Tyler Bertuzzi in the middle, and William Nylander just saying to Marner, Matthews, everyone listening, enough. He said some other things that went along with that. But at least it showed a little bit of emotion inside a group that didn't have enough emotion to try and stave off elimination. Now, they've got some fight left, and we'll see if they can deliver that in Boston. But it's just a clear indication that they're angry, they're frustrated, but they're not delivering on the ice.
I don't mind the emotion. I sat on the bench for a living. I saw it for years. A lot of guys, jawing at each other, getting in each other's face because they're trying. But I would like to see the emotion for 3 periods. That wasn't the case.
No.
It was too little, too late, because the bottom line is it was flat for the first 2 periods.
Yeah.
And then they had a push in the 3rd period.
I love William Nylander doing that. It's like big boy stuff. You have a disagreement on the bench, you call somebody out or whatever. But looking at the situation, it's almost like that should have happened 7 years ago, where it's like, this is real serious stuff. This is the business of winning. It should have happened a long time ago.
They lost in every single facet of the game, but right near the top of the list right now, when you look at the entire series, special teams have been absolutely woeful for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And it might be a different story if these numbers were flipped around. Look at the power play. 1 for 14, unacceptable. The PK, just brutal at 54%. And now they face an elimination situation, perhaps without their best player by far in Austin Matthews. Not in there for the 3rd period. He's been sick and did not look well for his last shift in the 2nd.
No, and that's kind of the internal information, is that it is the illness that he has been tangling with, and it dates back to, just post game 2. So it's something that he's been trying to work through, and obviously couldn't get through 3 periods. Now, we felt like maybe there was an indication of a muscle pull, right before the Pastrnak goal, because he can't move around. I mean, this guy is normally aggressive on the puck in terms of how he protects, how he retrieves, all of that. This is the end of his shift right before Marchand and Pastrnak take over, and Austin Matthews is barely moving out there.
It seemed like right in front of the net, his legs slid back, and when you get to a point where you just can't move out there, it's game over, because he was laboring, and it was just, he couldn't move and he couldn't play. He had to get off the ice.
He was the best player on the ice in game 2, and it looked like he was shot out of a rocket. That's not the case.
No.
You know that he's laboring, you know that he's suffering, and that obviously that's why they pulled him.
The other change in that 3rd period was Samsonov out and Woll in. I guess the critical question now is, does Woll start back in Boston?
Give him an opportunity, absolutely, because your back's up against the wall, and if you don't win, it's curtains. So Joseph Woll, I don't mind that, because Sheldon Keefe was looking for any type of spark. We talked about it. Yeah, they did have a spark in the 3rd period, but it wasn't enough. But Joseph Woll, this is a little bit of house money. You get 1 period in, you get the cadence of the playoffs. So you come back with him on Tuesday night, give him an opportunity. and see if he can stand on his head and get a huge win on the road. But you could tell that Sheldon Keefe was trying to get something going, anything going, and it wasn't on Samsonov, but you switched the goaltender to try and spark this group.
Last shot, he could go crazy in net and win 2-0. Like, that's, you're just grasping for straws right now, looking for something. It's the last chance.
Well, not only do they have to worry about their own goaltending, but I think the bigger concern is the guy in the Boston net. They finally break out of that rotation and go back with Swayman, and this is the reason why. Look at these numbers. 6-0 now against the Leafs on the season. A 1.32 goals against. A .958 save percentage, and 1 win away from round 2. 3 tries to do it.